So I can start. So good morning to everyone who is watching this interview. So in today's professional affiliate interview, we have a well academically decorated economist, Mr. Komi. I might butcher the surname. Is it Tsowou?
So
Am I right?
yes,
So okay, that's great. Who is a UNDP regional AfCFTA advisor and project manager. So, Mr. Komi, my introduction of you was very brief. So I would love that you introduce yourself, telling us who you are, what you do, and so forth.
thanks very much. Saxola, I hope I'm pronouncing well the name.
Yeah.
And thanks for YALDA also, which is one of our partner on our work regarding youth and regional integration AfCFTA on the continent. So my name, as you said, is Komi. I'm the UNDP Regional Bureau for Africa's advisor on the African Continental Free Trade Area. I also manage our overall program on AfCFTA. I'm based in our regional service center for Africa in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia.
Okay, that's really great work. That's really great work. Thank you for that amazing introduction. So, from the introduction, I've heard that I've depicted that you work as an economist for the UNDP regional AfCFTA advisor as a project manager. So, in that regard, would you mind explaining how you got to from being an economist to actually working for the UNDP as a regional AfCFTA advisor and project manager?
Look, I'm a passionate of economic and regional integration in Africa, and my background actually was in quantitative economics and financial markets. So look, on the continent or globally, there are increasingly opportunities for young professionals to also join international organizations and contribute to the development agenda, and especially within the continent. So I recall some years ago when I finished my university, I applied and passed the YPP of the United Nations, which is the Young Professional Exam. And thank God I was successful. And I started my UN journey, I think about 11 years ago, with the United Nations Conference on Trades and Development in Geneva, where I've been able to learn a lot. Issues around trades, commodities development, value chain, private sector development, and rationalization, and had contributed to some of the work on commodities issues and trades on the continents in Africa here, among other regions. I then later moved to the UN Economic Commission for Africa as trade economist. And 3 years ago, I joined UNDP as they opened a new program or started a new program to support the game-changing agenda for the continent, which is the African Continental Free Trade Area. So basically, that is my background, the career path so far within UN system. Thank you.
Wow, that's so amazing. Like you've literally been involved in a lot in terms of impacting the trade and the economical development in Africa. Thank you for that. So, with that in mind, what would you say are the major events that literally defined your career path? So, what are those major main events that defined your career path?
Look, of course, what I will say is that from the university, that's where, as a young African, you start thinking on what you want to do for the continents. In my heart, I was really into supporting the development agenda for the continents. And a best place to do that, of course, is to be able to also see how you can join an international or Pan-African institution. When I got the opportunity, as I said, to pass the young professional exam, sorry, I took it very seriously, prepared myself, and of course, I was able also to pass and start working with the UN system. Um, there are a number, I would say that was the key for me, which might be the key event. But aspiration is most important in that case. What you want to do, what I wanted to do with my life to contribute to the development. I had the opportunity also to join the private sector. Actually, I started in the private sectors in Canada before joining UN system, right? But my real ambition was really to work in the development space and most importantly, contribute to the development agenda of the continent. So I will say really it's about aspiration rather than events, but having to be able to pass the young professional exam was very important. I think a key event for me to be able to access the UN system. I know a lot of young people on the continent currently are also looking for similar opportunities. Working hard is what we need to push you, and then of course praying and keep believe in what you think you can do, and when you get any opportunity, do your best. Thank you.
Um, Thank you for that. Thank you so much for that. As a young individual who's also in university, I've literally learned a lot from having an aspiration and working hard and so forth. Thank you
Yeah.
for that. So, from my knowledge, I know that you have served in different capacities within the United Nations, particularly in trade,
Yeah.
industrialization, and value chain. So, what experiences have shaped the thinking that you have about regional economic integration in Africa?
Yes. So from my own experience, as I started as a young professional some years ago, I started working on commodities trade, the markets, and so and so. And I started the point where there was a commodity boom. The prices were high. And when the prices were high, as we know, most of our economies in Africa depend heavily on exporting raw material. So when prices are high, what you expect is for the economies to be able to leverage on those boom at the high prices to invest in transforming economies. But after years, when the price returned to normal, we again realized that nothing has changed much in the life of citizen, right? And I've been following those development myself, working at that time on commodities and trading and commodities policy for development and so on. So. And then realized that increasingly there has been a number of attempts to understand how trade can help development in Africa. And the only way to get the consensus also has been that the continent need to create more and retain more of the value. We need to produce more of what we trade, we consume. We need to add more values to our raw materials. We cannot continue trading raw materials. For instance, a number of economies currently have a lot. You know, a lot of countries producing cocoa beans. But we all know the value of on the cocoa value chain. Most of the higher value are accrued at the higher end of the chain, chocolate and others. But how many of African economies currently are really transforming the cocoa beans, still chocolate? A few. of course, it requires a lot of investment. So that's where we need to go. Cote d'Ivoire, Ghana, and some countries in the recent past have tried to invest to add value from cocoa beans, for instance, to cocoa butter, cocoa para. We need to do more. When you take coffee, we are in Ethiopia. Ethiopia is processing coffee, but most of the coffee here again are being traded, most of time not significantly processed. We have mining, a lot of country on the continent, as you know, but due to the structure of international market, we continue to export them. So we need to do more in terms of adding value, creating that wealth on the continent, and creating those jobs that are much needed by our young people who are coming on the market, for instance. But adding value also means we need to also support, private sector development, MSMEs, and others. But because of the way the continents have been, the economies have been fragmented, we have more than 10 countries with less than 10 million in terms of population, small size of those economies, which means we are not achieving that economies of scale industrialists will need to really invest. That's why, the game changing now around regional integration through the AfCFTA, where we consolidate all 55 African Union member states in one single market, is the future of the continent. And we must work to realize this market integration to help businesses to produce more of what we consume. Yeah.
Thank you so much for that amazing insights. For me, from what you've just said, I've literally realized the importance of trading already processed goods instead of trading raw materials. So thank you for that.
Indeed.
Now going to the AfCFTA and regional integration among African states, right? So the AfCFTA is very crucial for development in the African structure.
Yeah.
So, as an advisor of the AfCFTA, would you consider as an advisor, what do you consider as the main difficulties and possibilities you have faced while addressing and discussing the implications of the AfCFTA in your position?
Look, in my current position, as I said at UNDP, I oversee our program, UNDP Regional Bureau for Africa's program on the AfCFTA, guiding also our country officers, working with a number of policymakers, working with the AfCFTA Secretariat in Ghana, working with private sector. What is clear on the continent, and we cannot discuss that, challenge that, is there is a market for made in Africa product. We have been supporting a number of businesses on trade missions, on B2Bs within the continent. We are producing very goods item on the continent, and we have the capacity to produce more. We also have the capacity to integrate. By integrating, add more value to join global value chain, export more processed goods to global market, leveraging on integrated markets under the AfCFTA. So the possibility, the opportunities, we are seeing a lot of young entrepreneurs increasingly innovating products from agro, food to cosmetics, textile, the whole spectrum of digitalization, digital solutions to make our trading more efficient. So those are possibility opportunities that are existing on the continent. But there are challenges to overcome. One of the key challenges currently is to make sure commitment, when countries are making commitment to implement this agreement, they actually implement it. We have a number of countries that have fortunately taken steps to implement the agreement, and we are working with more countries to do so. So implementation, actual implementation from policy side, institutional strengthening on the ground is one we need to work on and quickly make this happen. The second um, key elements I will also highlight is that we need to have an environment that make African private sector or anyone investing in Africa as business to be competitive. Currently, most of our economies, most of our businesses can't compete with businesses or goods that are produced out of the continent. How do we do that? Investment in logistics solution infrastructure is huge. The infrastructure gap is still remain on Africa. How can we move goods efficiently from DRC to, for instance, Egypt? To roads, to nice and well-maintained road to be efficient? Or how can we move goods from the port of Lome or Ghana to the port of South Africa efficiently, the maritime roads and others? Third point, how do we now make sure we support productive, we invest in the productive capacity of businesses? This is something we are doing at UNDP, especially focusing on small and medium-sized businesses. As you know, MSMEs on the continent are the backbone of production, employment as well. So at UNDP, we are supporting capacities of those small businesses, provide them with market information, investing in their productive capacity through our country offices. We are also working closely with our partners to see how we can scale up, linking better small businesses with large corporations. So these are some of, I said, there are possibilities, solutions, and our contribution as UNDP Regional Bureau for Africa as well. There is a lot, but we need to really make this AfCFTA happen. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you so much. With all that you recently stated, I've depicted that each and every point that you had is very important towards growing Africa at large or for economic development within Africa. But I just need to ask this question. So, with all these possibilities that you've listed, possibilities with the difficulties and their solutions, so which do you think are important in order to ensure that SMEs in less developed countries like countries in Africa or like economies in Africa, are able to harness the benefits of the AfCFTA? So, what
Yeah.
are those possibilities and solutions that you think are,
Look,
are important?
Look, thanks. I think these are all very good questions. What are the priorities? And by working with thousands and thousands of businesses, especially MSMEs on the continent, there are a number of emerging issues and priorities, depend also where they are in terms of the value chain integration. You know, there are businesses in the informal sector. For them, the priority is to move to enjoy the benefits of the formal sector. When you talk about the AfCFTA, a formal trade agreement, the formal trade agreement are not for those in the informal sector. These are for those in the formal. So we are also currently working with businesses through business association to help formalization of those businesses. Now, those that are not in the formal sector and want to export, a number of businesses currently want to export. One issue is compliance. It's not because we want to trade within Africa that we have to trade any type of good, whether it's qualitative or not. We need to trade and produce and trade high quality goods. So issues around compliance to standards, very important. When you are you are producing cosmetics, you have to make sure that those products you are putting on the market there will not harm the people who will be using it. So it's important to look in the quality, the goods you are producing, the agro foods. You have to also make sure that they comply with market standards. So standard compliance to market standard is one thing. Another thing for MSMEs is packaging. You know, we have seen a lot of businesses producing quality goods, but sometimes the packaging is not there. And when you go to the supermarket, for instance, packaging plays a key role in your choice vis-a-vis what you're going to select, right? So packaging is also a challenge for many businesses. This is something I know a lot of partners, and including UNDP, we are also working on to support SMEs. Market information. What are the market? How do you as a business in Kenya come to know there are all these opportunity for you to export maybe leather product, leather bag to West African market, for instance? Do you have a distributor there and so and so? So where are the market opportunity on the continent? So these are also priority for SMEs. And I will probably conclude in terms of priority, access to finance. Most of the SMEs produce at small scale. Some of them might not have very good record in terms of credit payment and others. So difficulties now for them to access finance is quite prominent over the continent, no matter the country we consider. And then we also looking into increasingly how we can work with financial institutions, provide capacity, technical capacity upgrade to those businesses so they can also have better access to finance, but most importantly, to trade finance, which is a compendium of product and financial solutions for exporters or importers. So these are there are a number of issues we can discuss the whole day or the whole week, but let me just summarize them in those key elements that I'm seeing and we are seeing as priority for our MSMEs on the continent. Thanks.
Thank you so much for that amazing answer. And as an aspiring entrepreneur, that was a very good blueprint or guide on what I should do whenever I start a business or a small company of some sort.
Indeed.
So, Mr. Komi,
Yes.
as an expert in trade and investment, so how do you think the AfCFTA will impact intertrade in the next 5 to 10 years in Africa? So this question is very crucial for me because I'm in the next 5 to 10 years, I will be part of those entrepreneurs who ought to infiltrate the whole entrepreneur space or arena.
Yeah. Look, from my own view, the AfCFTA is one of those potential, big, huge potential game changer for the continent in terms of producing more of what we as African or those living in Africa consume. And there has been a lot of estimates on potential impact of the AfCFTA on the continent. And what is true, if such an agreement is well implemented, because currently, we are exporting too much our raw materials and we are not adding value, retaining, making money on the continent. So the AfCFTA is really here to make sure we produce more, we add more value. By adding more value, imagine if we can do more in terms of processing our cassava to cassava flour or to even bread, cassava bread, our cocoa beans more into to chocolate, our shea butter more into shea lotion and others. how many jobs we can create. I visited recently an entrepreneur in Togo, a small entrepreneur, but working with 5, 10 people in cosmetics. And even if she is able, for example, to increase the production capacity, she can hire more. We have this great fish processing SME in Uganda, employing more than 30 people currently. And she started 4 years ago with only 800 USD. But currently, she is employing 30 people in her business. So these are stories we can see more with the AfCFTA. Of course, as a quantitative economist, I like data. There are a number of estimates put for a contribution of AfCFTA to our intra-African trade or trade with the rest of the world in range of figures from 10 to 20, 30% over the next few years or 1, 2 decades or so. So the potential is clearly there if we address the current challenges, tariff and non-tariff barriers. But to realize all these ambitions, we need to ensure the AfCFTA is effectively implemented. Otherwise, these figures on potential impact are nothing if this agreement is not implemented. And of course, the role, for instance, of the youth are on the policy side, first, to advocate for implementation of an AfCFTA that works for the youth, young businesses, but also on the business development side. We need more of the young people that are coming on the market now to also think of how can I innovate and produce what we need to consume on the continent. So implementation of the agreement is key, and we can all contribute in our various capacity wherever we are on the continent or outside the continent, including through the diaspora as well. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Thank you so much for that. So, with all that advice, that amazing advice, which sectors do you think that will be the most dominant within those 5 to 10 years?
Look, we have done some studies on the potential impact of AfCFTA and a lot of engagement. Currently on the continent, when we look at our trade structure, there is a huge potential in agro-food. The markets, the population increasing. I think in few years, estimates are that we will reach 1.7 billion population on the continent from current 1.2, 1.3. So agro-food, we continue to import a lot of processed food from outside. Food insecurity is still prominent in much part of the continent. So agro-food depend on the region. It can be flour from cereals, edible oils from parts of the continent, milk and derivatives, and so, cocoa to chocolate and so. So agro-food. Another potential sector where we will see growth is the textile sector. Consider the current demand. There are other sectors as well, such as automotive sector, because we import on Africa, we import a lot in terms of car. And when we talk about automotives, not only about huge investment. For instance, when you take the automotive value chain that was able to grow in South Africa, businesses in Botswana and some other countries are able to integrate that value chain by supplying leather seats to the automotive sector. So these are opportunities. Currently, we are aware that there will be a lot of investment, for instance, in Ghana and some country in West Africa in terms of automotive. How can we position our businesses to supply those um, high investment or high value chain, so automotive. In terms of service as well, there are a lot of opportunities. Digital services, which is quite important, especially in the aftermath of COVID. We are seeing a lot of investment in the digital economy. And for instance, UNDP, we have launched a big initiative. We are supporting an initiative called Timbuktu, which is supporting innovation and startup, including in the digital space, transport and logistics. To be able to trade, we need to invest more in logistics. So a lot will come into as potential sector to grow will be a logistics sector and so and so. There are many other sectors, but these are also some of the key emerging we are see as potential to drive intra-African production and trade. Thank you.
Thank you for that amazing feedback. So, as you have good experience in evaluation of value chains and trade policies like those of the AfCFTA, what measures can African countries take in order to improve their value chains and in order for them to be more competitive within the global arena or the global markets?
Okay, so look, I will talk about two key initiatives. Currently, integrating, the value chains move you from production of raw materials to value addition. And one country cannot have that ambition to produce or to position or control each segment of the value chain. That's why it's important for Africa that we build what is called regional value chain. For instance, when we produce cotton in Mali and Burkina Faso, can you ship those cotton that will supply the textile factories in Cote d'Ivoire, Togo, and Benin, for instance? So how do we structure those and organize our regional value chains? When you have leather from Chad and other countries that have huge potential in livestock, can those leather products or raw materials come to Kenya and Ethiopia, which have very good industry in leather bag and value-added product? How do we organize those? So organizing, structuring regional value chain, positioning countries is important, which mean collaboration at the regional level. But most importantly, we need to invest in the productive capacities, infrastructure, which is a huge problem currently on the continent. We have a lot of businesses that will find deal on the continent, but shipping goods from one country, West Africa, to East Africa, is quite expensive. So that's why, for instance, when you look into some product like tea, West Africa can import tea actually from East Africa, Kenya and others. But most of the tea that are currently being importing into West Africa are coming from outside the continent because it will too costly to bring black tea, for instance, for Kenya due to infrastructure challenge. So these are some of the priorities we need to address to trade more among ourselves. Thank you.
Um, Thank you so much for that insight. So, Mr. Komo, you are someone who has done research and who's currently doing research. So, in the research that you've done and probably that you're currently doing, you have literally chosen financial markets and risk management. So, what are the measures? What measures can be taken to enhance risk management and FDI attraction in African financial markets?
Yeah. So look, when we talk about risk, there are several categories of risk. You have the financial risk, you have political risks, and so on. So, and one thing we don't talk a lot when we are talking about economic, and you mentioned FDI, for instance, we don't quickly link it with the political risks. Before you invest, you attract investment, you have to make sure you are politically stable. A lot of countries in Africa, unfortunately, we have few countries with consistent high risk when it's come to the political side, which impact investment on and other risks. But the risk in Africa may not necessarily be higher than other parts of the world. Why then others are attracting investment a lot and not us? And it comes again to how do you make sure your economy is competitive? If we don't invest in our productive capacity, our economy cannot be competitive. We will not be able to attract investment in in the productive side of the thing. We are attracting investment in the commodity sector, raw materials, mining. We are not yet attracting or investing a lot in the value addition side. And the role of financial market become very important to be able to match those investors with the industrialists that need capital. But the capital market on the continent is quite underdeveloped. When you have even people, citizens with formal bank account, the rate is still low in many countries. That's why increasingly we're also seeing solutions through fintech that are addressing some of the risk uh, uh, for instance, in terms of know your customer and so on. So some fintech company solutions are addressing some of those risks. But we need more stable economy to be able to increase or um, attract more of investment, whether within the continent or from outside the continent. We need also to do more to structure better the financial market, financial structure, access to formal financing system. We need also to invest more in terms of those innovative finance. We also looking into how do we make sure the financial literacy on financial risk management with those existing mechanisms, product, and tool like some type of contract. I'm not going to be too technical here, but there's some type of contract, for instance, forward contract and others in finance that can help businesses manage or reduce financial risk when they are dealing. Those exporting currently also are facing risk related to variation in the exchange rates when you are importing or importing from a country where you don't have the same monetary, same currency. So you are facing exchange rate risk as well. What are the mechanisms? Which type of contractual arrangement you need as business to get into if you want to reduce those risks. So these are also part of the whole financial literacy package we are increasingly also deploying to assist small businesses. Thank you.
Thank you so much for explaining the types of risks that a business or an economy might have and how to manage those. So, having studied financial economics and econometrics, how relevant is evidence-based policy making for Africa's growth, and what part does quantitative reasoning play in your practice? So how
Thank
relevant
you.
is
Yeah,
evidence-based?
that's also an interesting question. I love data, and I like using data because I think it speaks directly to the facts. Um, but in Africa, we have a lot of data issue. But notwithstanding the issue around data, the quantitative analysis help a lot in decision making, in putting facts or evidence on the table. For instance, if a government wants to know how many businesses currently have access to formal financial accounts, it's only with data. You can't go and say, oh, I think about 10% of our population. No. You need to say, I'm sure about, because you can estimate, you can also do a kind of quantitative evaluation based on surveys with all the financial institutions to come with a figure. We cannot be thinking of, say, oh, I do think of this, maybe the percentage of this and so on. So, unfortunately, there are a lot of economists who doesn't often do surveys to assess even the situation, the contribution of private sectors, and so to the what are the challenges, the key. So evidence policy making need to rely on data. When you look into econometric modeling, for instance, the potential impact of the AfCFTA, you can assess those potential impact too with econometric modeling or economic models, which is usually called general equilibrium models for those students in the study economics or quantitative economics. So data are very important for the continent. Data are very important to make those decisions that actually will have impact. Even there are some qualitative data you need to evaluate the impact of policy. Quantitative data also, for example, if you want to evaluate impact of tariff reduction on job value addition, industrial output, and so on. So you can easily use some econometric models who will tell you by reducing effectively tariffs, are we getting there? Are we increasing output? What other variables of the economy indicators we need to act on if we want to maximize the impact of tariff reduction? Non-tariff, for instance, barriers are very important. But some of the non-tariff barriers are linked to the regulation. But how can you then evaluate how you are doing in terms of reducing, as a country, how are you doing in terms of reducing non-tariff barriers? There are also some models increasingly that will help you to quantify the non-tariff barriers, which in most cases are regulation, but you can quantitatively assess, evaluate, and put them in the model and see how they are interacting with other indicators in terms of growth and development of your economy. Yeah, let me just stop there because it's I will take a whole week to explain all the models and others I've worked on. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that. In all that you've just said, I've literally depicted the importance of having accurate data in order to make informative and effective decisions as a country or as an economy. So thank you for that. So what advice would you give to a young African economist or a young African professionals looking to make meaningful impact in number one, in trade, and number two, in the development of the country?
Okay, thanks. Look, I do believe, and that is clear, that the youth are the present and the future of the continent. Whether you are at the school right now, especially those that are ending their school years and coming to the markets, whether you are already on the markets and so and so. So with regard to trades, as I think you have also understood, and you know how important it is for the continent to trade more among ourselves to add more value, right? And we need more of trade economists as well to be able to advise government on trade policies with the new dynamic in the world, right? We know a lot now is moving toward how do we also preserve the environment? So how do we trade in in a green environment, for instance? So green economies, green trade, and others are becoming more important. So we need to also, those economies that are coming, to green their trade knowledge. If I can say these are some of the areas. We do not have a lot of trade lawyers on the continent, to be frank as well. There are a lot of trades related issues when it's come to trade law and so on. So few universities are actually offering programs. We also are encouraging young people who are interested in trade to also pursue trade law in terms of their academic path, academic background, which is quite important. And more research, more work, more investment into intra-African trade, into business development. And of course, I will encourage a lot of young people to start their own business. No matter how well um, these trade policies are designed, or governments are making effort to recruit or business investment, I don't think that our market or current business scape could attract or could absorb the labor, the labor we have in Africa. So most of some young professional will find job, but there will also be the need to invest in starting businesses, your own businesses. As you know, there are a lot of opportunities currently to promote more of innovation and digital capability of the youth, so that they can invest in the productive assets, start businesses, which is quite important. When it comes to the development spectrum as a whole, the role of the young people is clear. Young people are driving the development. They have to drive, they have to impact policies. Currently, there are few countries where you can see when things are not moving well, young people are on the roads because they feel they are not well integrated in the decision making, or the decisions that are made are not made necessarily in their favor. And when we look at the population in Africa, in many countries, young people are more than half of the population. So we can't ignore the voice of young people. Wherever you are, school or not, you need to make sure you contribute to the development. And for me, I think from my view, whatever we can do as young people to make sure we are producing more on the continent, let's do it. Let's do our best. And let's make sure we all contribute to the implementation of the One African market. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that. Thank you so much for that. Um, I think each and every young individual who's either in university or who's either already a young professional or someone who is a small business owner right there would agree with me that this advice was very insightful. And the matter of starting businesses um, or being an entrepreneur, it's very essential. And looking at Africa's population, we really see the importance of starting those businesses and hiring those millions and millions of Africans without employment. So, Mr. Komi, this was a very amazing and very insightful interview. We actually got to learn about the AfCFTA, especially about on the trades and value chain side. The interview was very insightful in that regard. And I believe each and every young person or any individual at large who chooses to watch this or who's currently watching this will actually learn a lot in terms of what to do in order to develop the continent or the country at large. So thank you for making time in your busy schedule to actually come and have a chat with Yalda and impart your knowledge on the young people that are to come and work for the UN maybe one day and probably become project manager CFTA, taking it further and ensuring that it's effective in the whole continent. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and thank Yelda for providing me with the opportunity also to speak to the young people from and outside your network. So important. Let's work for the AfCFTA. Let's create job. Let's build our skills for business development, and as young people, let's embark on the digitalization agenda, which is the future of the world. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.